Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Craig Campbell from Pastor Craig's Cards, and got a story to share with you and some updates. And I think you'll be a little bit amazed as I am as I go along here. But about 2 weeks ago, when I had my 100th subscriber on YouTube, I went and I mailed out a 67 Eddie Matthews to God is Great, and he was over in Japan. So I had to go to the post office and get the overseas mailing and everything to mail that card out. And as I was walking out of the post office, it's in a little just a real small little strip mall. There's just off to the side there's a little like a thrift store. Like a guy does some notary work, and it's just a little odds and ends shop. And as I was walking out, I said, "Hey, do you got any cards? You got any baseball cards?" He said, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, do you got any baseball cards in there?" And he said, "Well, I got a few." And so he showed me he had some Pirates cards from the 1962 set, and he had some other football cards. And so we talked, and he was a little bit high with his prices, and as we talked, I kind of let him, know that I was a collector, and so we talked for a while, and I ended up buying. He had mainly some football, but he had some football sets and some kind of junk wax baseball sets that I bought. He had like an 87 tops, an 86, 88, and then I was more interested really in the football sets, and so I bought the sets, and I bought, he had a little folder with some 1965 tops baseball cards in there. There was a couple Hall of Famers, Jim Bunning, some smaller Hall of Famers, so I bought that, and he said, "Hey, I got more cards." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "Bring them up, and I'm going to take a look at them." I said, "I'm going to the West Coast here for a couple of weeks, and I'll be back and I'll check in." And so, I believe it was on Thursday, I stopped in. I said, "Hey, do you got those cards by chance?" And he said, "Well," he says, "I'll be honest with you." He said, "I've got a lot of stuff." And he said, "I'd like to meet maybe, what's a good day for you?" And I said, "Well, I'll be preaching on Sunday, so how about late in the afternoon, maybe 3:30 or 4 o'clock." So we agreed to meet at 3:30 at his place there, and he had keys to this little plaza where his little hobby or his little thrift store is at. And so I walked in there, and I told him I was going to bring my wife with me, and so my wife came with me, and he had two little square folding tables and a couple of chairs there, and we sat down. He had quite a few boxes, and so we started talking. He said, "Well," he says, "first I want to start off with the move from the least valuable to the most valuable." And I said, "Okay." I didn't really know for sure what I was getting into. He told me some of the stuff he had, and I thought, well, we'll see if he's got that or not. And so again, he started showing me some sets. He had like another 87, 88, 86 top set, and I was like, I'm just not really interested. That I've got so much of that anyways. I said, "I don't mean to offend you." I said, "But that's kind of from the what they call the junk wax here." I said, "Where there was so much of that made." And he said, "Well," he said, "it's all got to be a bundle deal." He says, "I want to get rid of everything." He said, "It's all got to be a bundle deal." And so I said, "Well, okay, we'll take a look at what you got." And so we started going through, and then he brought out another box, and it was actually this black box was full of cards, just so I have my piece of paper. I said, "Well, let's just call it the black box." He said, "Okay." He kind of laughed at that, and we went through there, and I looked into it, and I was like, "Boy, there's just a lot of junk in here," and but then I did see some other stuff in there, and so I looked through it, and just I kind of grabbed a few cards, and there were cards like this that were in there, stuck together, just junk. And as I'm looking in there, I start to see a few cards. I'm like, okay, what's kind of interesting. So I pulled out like a card like this. You can see Roberto Clemente, but kind of a nasty crease there. It was in the same box as this. And I looked a little further, and I saw, well, there was a nice, Raleigh Fingers 72 in there, in pretty good shape. I'm like, well, that's interesting, and look a little further, and I see this card right here in that same box, and so I flipped it over, and it's a high number of the 67. I'm like, well, that kind of interested me. And I dig a little bit further in that box, just being kind of careful. And here's a 72 Carl Yastrzemski in action, you know. And so I was like, okay, you know. And so I just kind of wrote on my notepad, you know, kind of that I was interested. In that same box, there's a checklist, unmarked. You know, so I'm like literally amazed that those cards were in the same box, shoebox. It's cards like these, stuck together. And not only a couple, but I mean, we're talking a few stuck together. I'm just like amazed. Like, how can this be? You know, my curiosity is like really, you know, peaked. I'm like, this is amazing. And I saw like, you know, just a few NBA cards, you know, like old, like hoops, you know, stuff like this. And I'm flipping through there, and I saw the Olympic team, and, you know, there was a couple of Michael Jordans in there, and I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. You know, and so I'm looking, and I just, the curiosity has really got me going. And I look a little further, and I see this card there, you know, like 73, Billy Williams, Rod Carew, all mixed in with stuff like this. I'm thinking, what have I got myself into? You know, and my wife is like, she's not really into cards, but I brought my wife because we've been married for 41 years. And we dated in high school, so we've known each other now for 44 years. And when he told me some of the stuff he had, I thought I need to bring my wife, because if he really has this stuff, this isn't just a decision that I can really make. You know, I mean, that's why we're still married after 40 some years, because you know, it's one thing, a couple $100, but you start getting into 4-digit numbers and bigger. It's got to be an agreed upon thing between a husband and wife. And again, here's another card I found in that same mutant box, Lou Piniella rookie card. I mean, it's not a perfect card, but look at it there. 4 corners are sharp. I mean, it's just laying in that black box. It's just laying in there. I'll show some photos I took of the box full of cards. I was amazed, you know. And in that box, I mean, there's stuff. These are all just 90s cards, 80s cards. There's some nice cards in there. There's like a nice, like a junk wax like Cal Ripken card, and yeah, there's stuff in there that's decent, that's worth saving. But there's also stuff like this. And so then, we go to another box, and this box is a little bit better. And I'm gonna try just to show you a box like that. So I'm going through that box. I start looking through there, and cards like this are in there. Remember, he's telling me it's a package deal. He doesn't want anything to be broken up. He just wants to get on with it. And I go through, and this was the best card that was in this box. 1967 Hank Aaron. And in this box, they're all older cards, but there's quite a variety. I pulled some out here. Some of these will probably almost make you want to cry. 64 Yogi Berra, writing on it. I got a 65 Bob Gibson. It's not laid out here right now. Also got writing on it. You know, like something like a 65 Walter Alston, you know, all dinged up. But then you find cards like that from I think that was from the 73. You know, and oh, that same box, stuff like that. Brooks Robinson, Billy Williams, Red Shandus, a lot of 69s, just common cards. Brooks Robinson, Billy Williams, on and on, just cards. And then you get cards also like this, written on with pencil. So I mean, there was just a hodgepodge of just stuff, all the way from Yogi Berra written on to this nice white Wilhelm. Checklists left and right. 75s. I got so many of these 75s I can shake a stick at them. And I know inside this box, I know that there's, I remember seeing some Brooks Robinsons in there and some other stuff. So then he pulls out another box. It's like a metal box, and start going through there, and there's more stuff. 1967, 2 Brooks Robinsons. 1967 Brooks Robinsons, the hard one to find. I think I counted over 65 of the high numbers from the 67 series. 4 Carlton Risk rookies. 8 1975 Johnny Benches. On and on this list goes. Sandy Koufax. League leader cards. More Hank Aaron's. A ton of those 68 game cards. Willie Mays. Hank Aaron. 6 Mickey Mantles. Just on and on. Some are creased. Some are not the best shape. And then there's some that are really good. And so we were looking through this box, and I'm like, I can start seeing, like, you know, things are starting to add up. And he was somewhat aware of what he had, you know, and some of his thoughts were way overpriced. He was looking at, like, the price of, like, a PSA 8 for a card that, you know, would maybe come out to be a PSA 3, 4, you know, somewhere in there. But then he had some cards that were just really, really nice. And that box held a lot of cards. It held a lot of cards. And then he also, I'm forgetting, but he also had a, hold on a second. How could I forget this? Everything from 68, 69s, just 72s, on and on. Just, I mean, I so many of them. I've gone through and I pulled out all of the big stuff. You know, team cards, checklists, just unbelievable amount of cards. I'm almost speechless. And just to include 1979s and 1980s and 81s and 82s, and some of those, like 79 cards, there were some that were just so good, and then there's some that are beat up, and it was just, they were in this box together. It was just amazing. It was amazing. But then we moved on to his binder, and it wasn't like a 9-page baseball binder, but it was actually like a photo album, but none of the cards were glued in. And I started looking, and that very first page had 69 Nolan Ryan, 69 Tom Seaver. Flip the next page, and 2 Mickey Mantles, 67, 68, Hank Aaron, 67, 68, Steve Carlton's, Lou Brock's, Bob Gibson's. Almost everything's really between 65 and 70 in that binder, 69. And I'm looking, and then all of a sudden I see the Nolan Ryan rookie card, and it looked it looks really in good shape. The back's off center, but the front just looks really really good. And like I said, I believe there's 4 Mickey Mantles and a handful of Willie Mays. Everything's again from 65 to about 69 or 70 in that binder. There was a handful of 50s cards, but they were all commons. And so we started talking money, and I'm not going to get into that, but I went outside. Me and my wife went for a little bit of a walk, and she knew she knew that I was really captivated, and I had some money saved up, and so she said okay, and she dipped into her savings account, and helped bridge the gap, and but she said until I pay her back the money for her saved account. My wife is much more thrifty than I am, and thank God for that. But she said until I paid back the money she took out of the savings account, she was going to hold on to that binder. And I said, that's fine. And she's a good steward, and nothing's going to happen to that. And she's put it away in a safe place. And but she just said, Craig, not that my wife, she's thrifty, and her comfort zone is to know that she's got some money in her savings account, and her fallback money in case something happens, and I respect that. And again, after 41 years, I don't have to worry about the cards disappearing on me. But so she's holding on to that binder with the Nolan Ryans and the Tom Seavers, 69 Tom Seaver, Bob Gibson's, Lou Brock's, just on and on. And, I'm really kind of at a loss. I'm a little bit overwhelmed. I've never really dealt with this amount of cards all at one time. I'll deal with it. I'll be happy with it. But again, just I mean, just so much stuff. Stuff like this. And again, there's just so many nice, like 1969 common cards that just overwhelmed with the amount of cards, and then I'm just gonna have to do something with some of these junker cards. But so my work is cut out for me. I'm still gonna go to Strongsville. My wife did say she would request that I not purchase any more cards until I get her paid back, and that'll happen. But I'm just overwhelmed, guys. I want to share this with you. I know you're only seeing a snippet, a small segment of what's going on here, but just man, I'm just excited and looking forward to going through these cards. I'm going to have a huge submission to SGC at some point. Some of those cards in that binder I think will grade out collector grade 4, 5, 6. That Nolan Ryan looked really, really sharp. Except for the back was like off center, but the front looked really good. And if anybody's got any comments about the Nolan Ryan, the centering issues, please let me know. But I would have never asked if the guy had cards unless I would have been on YouTube and mailed that card to Japan to God is Great for being my 100th subscriber. And this is all just kind of coming together, and I'm just a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm overwhelmed in a good way, and I'm thankful that my wife was able to come alongside and help. I thank her very much for that, and I'm just really glad I ran into this seller. It just blew me away. Hey, do you got any cards for sale? To have a Nolan Ryan rookie card in pretty good shape, and Mickey Mantles and Hank Aaron's, and like, man, this is pretty wild. So I just wanted to share this news with you guys. I know it's a long video. I'm looking at the timer now. It's almost 20 minutes. If you stayed with me to the end, man, thanks a lot for going along on this journey with me. I don't know where it's going to end up at. Probably with a big build to SGC. But really just, man, I love the hobby, and this brings back some really good memories. Like many of you, I mean, I've been collecting since the early 70s, and then I stopped in like 78 or 9, got back into it in 86, 87, and there was a point in the early to mid 90s where I had to sell off some cards to help with the family. We were struggling pretty good, and I never regretted that, and but I'm really embracing this chance here, and my dog Lucky, because I feel like I'm the lucky one, but Lucky wants to go for a walk. So guys, thanks for watching. Say a prayer for me, and just enjoy the hobby, guys. This here is like, wow. This is kind of like once in a lifetime, and so I want to share it with my friends, and I think a lot of you out there and that watch these videos, you'll understand. My co-workers, some of my friends won't understand, but I think you guys will. So thanks. Take care.